In the meantime, I wanted to talk about change because change is constant and marketers have to deal with it, both in the tech and legislative ecosystems. So what's coming down the pipe and what does it mean for measurement? So first off, GDPR raised the wall for gardens on May 25th, 2018, and it eliminated that hashed user ID column for the European Union or any global data transfer that included the European Union. Similar changes are actually coming into the U.S. in September 2020. For those of us in the industry, you know that Google's been talking about this for a long time, didn't commit to a date. Well, now they've committed to the date and it's going away. So I guess that means the world is ending, but maybe not. So what does the user ID allow us to do that makes it so important to marketers? A lot of things actually based on those little bubbles over there. Lets us verify frequency by cookie or person, count total ad exposure by person, analyze the true reach of media placement and campaigns, compare reach and deduplication by media placement and campaign, attribute or deduplicate conversions and clicks for touchpoint attribution, report on user conversion rates, identify unique site traffic, visitor identity, and all of this is obviously super useful. But the removal of this ID doesn't spell the end of the world. From our perspective here at Marketing Evolution, it's business as usual, and we can work with any level of DoubleClick changes predicted for the next quarter, next year, and beyond. But we'll talk a little bit more about those solves in the coming sections. All right, this is what I like to call shock and awe, because on January 15th, Google announced a plan to wean its dominant Chrome browser off of cookies. The design includes a partition separating how first and third parties are allowed to request those telltale attributes pertaining to user identity without any of our favorite buddies hanging out in the browser. The ability to pass these attributes between browsers and servers is going to be governed by something Google's calling a privacy budget. And while the generosity of these budgets has not yet been defined, it's expected to vary by company profile and use case. So we've covered some of the nascent tech movements, but what about legislative threats? I guess I'd start off, or actually limit to CCPA, but that's really the dominant thing impacting headlines right this second. But CCPA doesn't actually end user ID collection. It requires people to opt out, but that's not going to inspire any sort of mass action that removes the user ID from being at our disposal. However, I would suggest it's prudent to plan for the unknown in case a more restrictive national law is passed. You take a look what the House, the Senate are talking about. Like recent Democrat proposals for privacy and data protection frameworks are really vague. They've suggested things like, hey, maybe you guys police yourself, maybe. And to be honest, it was actually a boring read. But if I had to guess where new legislation could err on the side of, I'd suggest maybe a couple of options. The first being outlawing user identification altogether, which I find to be highly unlikely. But maybe some more likely options, some things already in motion today, would be enforcing something like a certified privacy vendor maintains user identification in a secure and privacy compliant way. We already start to see a little bit of that trickling down the pipes. Or alternatively, grouping users into aggregated cohorts for external distribution. A little bit of that happening at Google, definitely happening at Facebook. So when you compare what we see right now, these vague legal proposals, to the recent, more heavy-handed actions that are happening in tech, I'm going to suggest that Google, Facebook, and Apple define the path that marketers ultimately travel, and not our legislative bodies. And for what it's worth, given their focus, the corrective action seems to be geared at targeting and profiling, and not measurement itself.